I am Kayode Adebayo. The President-elect Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has condemned what he described as ethnic slurs, physical and verbal attacks during and after the just concluded elections in some states. Tinubu, however, promised to give priority to expanding the civic space and safeguarding citizens' freedom to exercise their rights within the bounds of the law. In a statement he personally signed in Abuja, the former Lagos State Governor said elections will be a celebration of maturing democracy and freedom of choice and ought not to be moments of grief. Following the violence in some parts of the country during the 2023 governorship election and state assembly elections, the United States government has promised to impose a visa ban on election offenders. This was disclosed in a statement issued by the U.S. Embassy in Abuja. The U.S. expressed worry by violence, voters' intimidation and suppression that took place during those polls in Lagos, Kano, and other states, witnessed by the U.S. diplomatic mission firsthand. It, however, commended all Nigerian political actors, religious and community leaders, youth, and citizens who have chosen to reject and speak out against such violence and inflammatory languages, affirming Nigerians' commitment to and respect for the democratic process. President Muhammadu Buhari has humbled the Nigerian lawmakers when he rejected a bill that sought for power to summon the president and governors. The lawmakers in the 35 bills forwarded to Buhari for his assent rejected 19 bills in the Constitution Amendment on power to summon the president and governors. Senate President Ahmad Lawan had, during the plenary, lamented the refusal of the president to assent to 19 bills in the Constitution Alteration Bill. Buhari had assented to 16 out of 35 Constitution Alteration Bills transmitted to him for assent by the National Assembly. The most striking of the assented 16 bills, according to the Senate President, was the 5th Alteration Bill number 6, which makes provisions for financial independence of state houses of assembly and the judiciary. Others, he added, were those that dwell on power devolutions in the areas of moving railway services, correctional centers, and power generation and distribution from the exclusive list to concurrent list. He, however, said that the 19 bills that were not assented to by the President will still be pursued vigorously by both chambers of the National Assembly for that purpose. Osun State Governor Senator Ademola Adeleke has distributed mobility aids to no fewer than 240 selected persons with disabilities in Osun State. This is in continuation of the celebration of his 100 days in office. Governor's Office correspondent Abdurrahim Adekunle now completes the story.
State Governor Senator Ademola Adeleke, who identified with persons with disabilities, did not hide his joy when he danced to cultural performances by different groups. The governor, while thanking the people for massively voting for the People's Democratic Party, also sympathized with the families of those who lost their lives to political violence, saying election is not a war. According to him, no growth can be complete if a section of the society is neglected and abandoned, reiterating the resolve of his administration to supporting people with disabilities, and promised that the state government will comply with local and international best practices. The governor therefore directed the Minister of Justice to review and bring the Osun State Disability Bill up to date.
Permit me to first of all thank Osun people for the successful conduct of the last polls. I really appreciate you. I say, Gandhi, while we celebrate the success of the poll, we equally sympathize with the victims of political violence across the state. We are saddened by deliberate acts of thuggery in some part of the state. I will repeat here that election is not a war, but choice making. I call on all Russian people to get back to work and focus on the urgent task of building a better Osun state. Now is the time to support the government effort to address our developmental challenges. We need all hands on deck to improve the growth of various sectors of the society.
Earlier in her welcome address, the Coordinating Director, Ministry of Youth, Sports and Special Needs, Mrs. Taiwo Oladunjoye, commended Governor Adeleke for distributing mobility aids to about 240 persons with disabilities.
I wish to commend our compassionate governor for taking the interest in the general well-being of the persons with disability by graciously approving and giving necessary support for the actualization of this program, despite the paucity of funds in the state.
In their goodwill messages, Mr. Stephen Idowu, President of the Joint National Association of Persons with Disability, JONAPID, Dr. Layinka Odenide, Mr. Kehinde Onitiju, among others, thanked the governor for his love for the disability community, demonstrated through the life impacting programs under the Community Development Association, CDA, and the distribution of mobility aids, and as well requested for reinstatement of 61 disengaged people with disability teachers, among other requests. High points of the event were cultural display by deaf group and distribution of the mobility aids to persons with disabilities across the 5 cluster groups of physically challenged, visually impaired, hearing impaired, people with albinism, and people with spinal cord injuries. Items distributed include wheelchairs, elbow and armpit crutches, guiding canes for the visually impaired, leading midget for the hearing impaired, medical aid materials for persons with spinal cord injuries, thick umbrellas, skin cream, and magnifying glasses for those with albinism, among others. It has been Abdurrahim Adekileko reporting.
With about 68 days to the handover the reins of power to the incoming government, the United States of America has implored President Muhammadu Buhari to remove the controversial fuel subsidy before bowing out of office on May 29 this year. The Buhari administration had recently vowed to remove the controversial petrol subsidy before the end of the current federal government. Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Hajia Zainab Ahmed, who stated this, attributed the delay in removal of the subsidy as provided for in the Petroleum Industry Act 2021 to the 2023 general election and the forthcoming national population census. Speaking through its outgoing ambassador to Nigeria, Mary Beth Leonard, U.S. charged Buhari, who said he was in a hurry to leave office to complete the unfinished job of fuel subsidy removal. In response to the president's expression of satisfaction with the blossoming Nigeria-U.S. relations, the ambassador in her remarks said she was happy with the progress made in Nigeria-U.S. relations in the past 3.5 years. And now to sports. Head coach of Nigeria Under-23 male team Olympic Eagles, Salisu Yusuf, said his boys are up to the task of grabbing one of the tickets to this year's Africa Under-23 Cup of Nations in Morocco, when they take on their Guinean counterpart in the final qualifying fixture first leg duel at the Moshood Abiola National Stadium today. He expressed satisfaction that the players know that reaching the African Cup of Nations presents them a tremendous opportunity to fight hard for a ticket to the Olympics, which is a global tournament. He disclosed that a number of players which can help to claim the ticket have been invited from overseas, adding that the Olympic Eagles will be aiming for a good win today. Guinea's Under-23 squad had their official training at the Moshood Abiola National Stadium hours before the Olympic Eagles took to the same pitch for their final walkout ahead of the encounter. Nigeria have won all the available medals in the men's Olympic football tournament, taking the gold in Atlanta, USA in 1996 and the silver medal in Beijing, China in 2008. 8 years later, in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, the squad led by John Mikel Obi won the bronze. And now on the foreign scene, a university student in Kenya was killed and more than 200 people were arrested nationwide in a nationwide protest against President William Ruto's government over high living costs. Protesters took to the streets of the capital, Nairobi, and several other cities in response to a call for demonstrations by opposition leader Raila Odinga. Some lit fires in the streets and threw rocks at police. Police fired tear gas and water cannon at protesters, including Odinga's convoy, as he addressed supporters from the sunroof of his car. Police said 24 officers were injured in the clashes, as they gave no figure for injuries among the protesters. The person killed is a student at Maseno University in Western Kenya who was shot in the neck by the police when officers fired live rounds after running out of tear gas canisters and blank rounds. The report said the officers were confronting students who had set fires in the road and vandalized local businesses. It was the first major outbreak of political violence in the East African nations since Ruto took office six months ago. And that ends the midday news on OSBC TV. It was edited by Michael Adeniyi. Please join us at 3 for the state news. Good afternoon.